Welcome to this deep dive, and today we're looking into what we're calling the Techlash backlash. You know that feeling, right? When some digital thing, some app or whatever that's supposed to make life better kind of ends up just making things worse.
It is ironic, isn't it?
It really is.
A lot of times, these solutions, they start with the best intentions, but then all these unintended consequences, they kind of snowball.
Yeah.
Like, take social media algorithms, for example.
Okay, yeah.
You know, they were supposed to connect us, give us this, tailored content, but for a lot of people, it's become a total engagement trap.
Okay, so I get that the algorithms are curating our feeds, but how does that actually translate into, like you said, this engagement trap?
Well, think about it, what actually ends up going viral. It's rarely, calm, nuanced discussions.
Right.
It's usually really sensationalized stuff, emotionally charged content, even negative stuff. And the algorithms are picking up on how we react, and they just feed us more of what keeps us clicking,
So it's not really about showing us what we like. It's about what's going to keep us on our phones.
Exactly. And there was this study from the University of Pennsylvania, and they actually found a correlation between increased social media use and feelings of loneliness and depression, especially in young adults.
Oh.
So it's we're getting the exact opposite of what we signed up for.
It's kind of unsettling, right? Especially because I feel like most of us, we know we spend so much time scrolling, but to think that it could actually be dictating our moods it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Without us realizing it.
That's exactly it. We think we're in control, but these systems are designed to take advantage of us, our psychological vulnerabilities.
Wow, and it's not just social media, is it? It feels like this is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
With productivity apps. I started using one to try to get more organized, but I actually feel more stressed now.
That's not surprising at all. The whole quest for productivity, it sounds good in theory, but it can be a trap. A lot of these apps, they've got constant notifications, this huge emphasis on optimization, and it just creates this sense of digital performance anxiety.
Digital performance anxiety, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
I like that. It is kind of you're always on stage, even when you're just checking your to-do list.
Precisely. And even more insidious is that certain design features, with gamification, progress bars, that kind of stuff, they tap into our reward systems, right? So we get this little dopamine hit with each task we complete, which keeps us coming back for more, even if it's at the expense of our mental well-being.
So instead of freeing up our mental space, we're actually adding to the mental load.
Yeah.
With this pressure to perform.
Right.
I can see that. I can definitely see that happening. But it's not like the developers are setting out to create these problems.
Yeah. It's more nuanced than that. A lot of times there's this disconnect between solving one specific problem and considering the bigger consequences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's focusing on just this one piece of the puzzle, but not seeing the whole picture.
Okay, so you're saying even with good intentions, things can still go sideways.
Yeah.
But surely someone somewhere has to be seeing this pattern, right?
They are, and that's where the pushback is starting to come in. More and more people are questioning these so-called solutions and demanding more transparency, more accountability from these tech companies.
Well, that's good. That's encouraging. This whole conversation, though, is making me realize how big this whole Techlash thing is. It's not just about annoying notifications or addictive social media. It's way bigger.
You're absolutely right. It brings up some pretty big questions about how we design and interact with technology. And speaking of which, we've got another set of examples to get to, from smart homes to chatbots, where this whole promise of convenience often clashes with reality.
Let's get into it, because I've definitely had my fair share of battles with my so-called smart devices.
Oh, I bet you have.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that right after this.
Okay, so let's hear about these other tech solutions that have backfired.
Yeah.
Before, we were talking about smart homes, and I'll admit, I was pretty excited about the whole concept. Being able to control everything with your voice, having lights that turn on automatically, it felt very futuristic.
It is a seductive idea, this seamless integration of technology into our lives. But as you've probably experienced yourself, the reality, it doesn't always live up to the hype.
Oh, absolutely. Just the other day, my smart speaker decided it just couldn't talk to my smart lights anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And don't even get me started on the time my robot vacuum got stuck under the couch and started sending me these frantic notifications.
Classic. It's almost comical though, isn't it? These devices are supposed to simplify our lives, and yet they just introduce this whole other level of complexity and frustration.
Yeah, it's like a trade-off. You gain some convenience, but, then you have to deal with all the potential glitches, security vulnerabilities, and this constant reliance on, internet connectivity.
Yeah.
What about those AI chatbots for customer service? Those were supposed to be the ultimate time saver, but more often than not, they just make me want to pull my hair out.
Chatbots. A prime example of a solution that just creates more problems than it solves.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be helpful for simple, straightforward inquiries, but the minute you run into, something a little unusual, you're just trapped in this maze of automated responses that never actually answer your question.
Oh, it's so true. And the worst part is, sometimes you just want to talk to a real human, but the chatbot's blocking your path, making you go through endless menus, FAQs, before you can finally get to an actual person. Feels so dehumanizing.
It is, and it brings up a really important point. In our quest for efficiency and automation, we've kind of lost sight of the human element.
Yeah.
We're so focused on optimizing these processes that we forget about things like empathy, actually connecting with another person, having a conversation.
That really resonates with me. And it makes me wonder, is there a way to kind of reclaim that human element in our interactions with technology?
Yeah.
Can we design systems that are both efficient and empathetic?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. But it requires a bit of a shift in mindset. We need to start prioritizing human well-being, connection, as core design principles, not just afterthoughts.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's about being more thoughtful and intentional about how we design it and interact with it.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where technology complements our lives, not dictates them. And that kind of brings us back to the bigger picture, why does this techlash keep happening? What are the root causes that lead to these well-intentioned solutions backfiring?
Okay, let's get into that because honestly, it can feel a little overwhelming. Is this just the inevitable outcome of technological progress? Are we destined to be stuck in this cycle of solutions just creating new problems?
I don't think so. Technology is this powerful force, but we can't forget it's ultimately a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for, bad. The problem is we've often just given control of that tool to forces that prioritize profit and efficiency over, human well-being.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the systems and structures that shape its development.
Exactly. We need to look beyond the shiny gadgets and apps and examine those underlying power dynamics. Ask ourselves, who's actually benefiting from these technologies and at what cost?
That's a really good point. And it makes me wonder if we want to shift those power dynamics and create a more, human-centered technological landscape, where do we even begin?
That's where it gets interesting, because even though these challenges seem daunting, there's also this growing movement of individuals and organizations who are pushing back against these trends and demanding better.
Okay, so give me some hope here. What are people actually doing to reclaim control and create a more positive future for technology?
Well, one of the most powerful tools we have is our awareness. As more and more people become aware of these downsides of tech solutions, they start demanding more transparency, more accountability, and more ethical design from these companies.
So it's like a consumer-driven movement, like voting with our wallets and our voices.
Exactly. And we're also seeing this surge of creativity and innovation. People are developing alternative technologies, platforms that actually prioritize human well-being. Privacy, connection, from apps that promote digital well-being to social media platforms that actually encourage real conversations. There's this whole new wave of tech that's being designed with people in mind, not profits.
That's really inspiring. It sounds like we're at a tipping point where we can either choose to let technology control us or we can actively shape it to actually serve our needs and values.
I agree. And it's not just about these grand gestures or waiting for, some big systemic change. There are simple things each of us can do, practical steps in our own lives to navigate this whole techlash and cultivate a healthier relationship with technology.
Okay, now we're talking, give us the goods. What can we do starting today to reclaim that digital agency and create a more, human-centered tech experience for ourselves and everyone around us?
Okay, so we've talked about a lot from, social media algorithms to smart homes that aren't so smart, but I'm really curious to hear more about those practical steps you mentioned. What can we actually do to navigate this techlash thing and come out, maybe feeling a little bit more empowered?
One of the most impactful things, and it's really simple, is just start paying attention. Like, be more aware of your own tech habits. How do you feel before, during, after using certain apps or devices? So, like, if I'm, I don't know, like doom scrolling on Twitter and I'm feeling all anxious, that's my cue to step back and rethink my whole, relationship with the platform.
Exactly. It's about tuning in to your own, like, internal compass. And once you have a better sense of your own patterns, then you can start setting some boundaries.
Boundaries with technology. I like that.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like?
I mean, it could be as simple as just turning off notifications, or like scheduling specific times for checking email, or even creating like tech-free zones in your home. The idea is to reclaim control of your time and attention, not letting technology, run the show.
It's like giving yourself permission to disconnect and be more present.
Yeah.
Like in the real world, which actually makes me think about something we talked about earlier, that whole idea of human connection. It's like, in some ways, technology has made us more isolated, even though we're like constantly connected.
It's a really good point, and it's why it's so important to be intentional about the ways that we're using technology to connect with other people, like choosing platforms, apps that actually foster genuine interaction, meaningful conversations, rather than the ones that prioritize like shallow engagement, superficial connections.
So it's like quality over quantity when it comes to our digital interactions.
Absolutely, yeah. And don't underestimate the power of like actual face-to-face communication. Put down the phone, step away from the screen, have real conversations with people.
It's funny, right? We're talking about all these like technological solutions, but sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones, like the human ones.
That's true. And speaking of solutions, one thing that's really encouraging is that there's this whole movement of people developing these like alternative technologies, ones that prioritize human well-being and ethical design.
Oh yeah, tell me more about that. What are some examples of those like human-centered technologies?
Well, there are these apps designed to promote like mindfulness, digital well-being,
Yeah.
like the kind that guide you through meditations or help you track and limit your screen time. And then there are social media platforms that are actually built around like empathy, authenticity, like real connection, not just algorithms that are designed to keep you hooked.
So they're using like the good parts of technology to create something that actually enhances our lives, not like takes away from them.
Exactly. And another area where we're seeing a lot of innovation is in data privacy. People are demanding more transparency, more control over their information, and companies are actually starting to listen. They're offering more privacy-focused tools and services.
So it's not just about being like a passive consumer, it's about actively trying to shape the whole digital landscape to like align with our values.
That's it. That's the key. We have a lot more power than we realize. By making these conscious choices about, the tech we use, the companies we support, even the policies that we advocate for, we can create a much more human-centered digital future.
This has been so eye-opening. It's really made me see that this Techlash thing, it's not just about, like individual frustrations or like glitches. It's about something much bigger, like a societal shift. Like we're questioning our values and priorities in a world that's just so dominated by technology.
I agree 100%. And it's a conversation that we need to keep having. Like as technology keeps changing, so will the challenges and the opportunities. And it's up to all of us to stay informed, stay engaged, and be empowered to shape the kind of digital world we want to live in.
Well said.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced this Techlash backlash? Like what steps are you taking to, make sense of all of this? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments.
And as you're thinking about this, consider this. If you could redesign one piece of technology to really benefit humanity, what would it be and why? The future of tech is in our hands. Let's make it a good one.